Bang, we're in here. What's going on, y'all? Welcome to a live stream edition of Gen Sports Corner back at you for September 17th, 2022. You know what we're here for tonight. Big fight tonight between Gennady Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez, fighting for a lot of belts. This is the third time. This is the trilogy. A lot of bad blood between the two. So we're going to get into it. First, I'm going to talk about the first two fights and how they're going to play into this third fight. Then we're going to go through the punch stats. We're going to go through their recent fights. We're going to go through keys to victory for both fighters, and then we're going to talk about what what the prediction is going to be. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into this. So you have Gennady Golovkin, and then you have Canelo Alvarez. Let's look at the tail of the tape real quick. So you have Canelo Alvarez, 32 years old, 57 wins, 2 defeats, and 2 draws. Fights orthodox. He's 5'8" with a 70.5-inch reach. Canelo Alvarez, Gennady Golovkin, 40 years old, 42 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. Both the loss and the draw were to Canelo Alvarez. Fights orthodox, 5'10 and a half inches high, tall, and then his reach is 70 inches. So the reach is about the same. He's about 2.5 inches taller than Canelo, and Canelo has 8 years on him in terms of age, in terms of youth being on the side. Now the last 6 fights, very interesting when you look at both fighters here. You look at Triple G getting older. You saw that definitely show up in the Sergey Derevyanchenko fight. Sergey Derevyanchenko, very tough customer. He doesn't. Nobody has an easy fight against this guy. 14-4, but he's always a tough opponent for everybody. Jermell had a hard time against him, as well as Daniel Jacobs had a hard time against him, and Triple G again had a rough time against him. Okay, so you look at that guy, and that really showed me a lot about where Golovkin was at in his career. And I thought he lost the fight. That's me personally. That's what I saw. Okay, he got the nod, but I thought Derevyanchenko earned the win there. And then you look at some of the other fights that he had. Let's go ahead and look at this. He had the fight against Ryoto Murata earlier this year on April 9th. That was a really good fight. Murata, a really tough opponent, can take a punch, just built like a tank, and he just comes forward and he was able to beat Murata. He stopped him. So that was good for him. Okay, that was a good win for Golovkin, but he did show some signs of age, in my opinion. Okay, and then the fifth fight that he had prior to this one was the loss to Canelo Alvarez. Okay, so he's been staying fairly active, but not as active as I would like. Okay, because he had a 2-year layoff, almost a year and a half layoff before the Murata fight. Okay, so that's good that he came back in and had a tough fight, but I think Canelo's been more active against higher caliber opponents, in my opinion. I mean, he had the last 6 fights. He had the KO over Sergey Kovalev in 2019. I mean, he was a faded fighter at that point, but still, still going up in weight to 175 and getting a dub there, getting a belt. So, all right. He had the win over Callum Smith, who, in my opinion, was a solid fighter, but not really a top-notch champion, belt holder, right, at 168. Then he beat Billy Joe Saunders, very good fighter, okay? Billy Joe Saunders had another one of the belts at 168, and he beat Billy Joe Saunders. And Billy Joe Saunders, in my opinion, is a guy who's been running from both Triple G and Canelo for the past 4 or 5 years, okay? And he finally had to get into the ring with one of them, and he got stopped later in the fight. It was a very good win for Canelo. He was boxing Canelo very well, master boxing class, but Canelo just stayed patient and eventually was able to catch him with a good counter shot that broke the eye socket, and he eventually stopped him. Okay. Caleb Plant, nice win over Caleb Plant. Stoppage in the 10th or 11th round, I believe. And Caleb Plant, middle middle of the pack on the cusp of being a very, very good fighter. Okay, he has the skill set, but the power is not there. And I think after 6, 8 rounds, the stamina becomes a little bit shaky. So he was able to take Caleb Plant to deep waters. And though Caleb was having a lot of good success early on, he wore down as the fight went on, not just from the punches from Canelo, but just from having to be active and use his legs so much in that fight. And then the last fight that Canelo just had, the loss to Dimitri Bivol, which in my opinion, nothing to be ashamed about. He went up to 175 against, in this case, a true champion at 175, a true light middleweight. Sergey Kovalev was a little bit older, maybe a little bit faded. Dimitri Bivol, nah, he a real one. And I knew about Bivol. I've been following him since 2017, somewhere around there. So I knew exactly what type of guy he was. I picked Canelo to win, but I also said it would be a 50-50 coin flip. The people that thought that Canelo was going to have no problems were out of their fucking minds, because Dimitri Bivol, great jab, a natural 175-pounder, better reach, taller guy, and knows how to use his jab. He knows how to use his height. He's not going, and he's very smart. When Canelo was trying to take rest, go on a rope and take a rest, he ain't giving no time to rest. And when Canelo would try to bait him into overextending himself on combinations, he wouldn't do it. He would just get his stuff off and then say, boom, I'm out. And he never gave Canelo a chance to really land a big shot, which he was loading up on to try to land all night long. So Canelo, even with the loss there, he's been staying busy, and he's been getting those quality rounds in against quality opponents. And in the case of Bivol, a great opponent. So especially in that last fight, I mean, that's great experience. I think that experience is going to help him out to the extent that the Mayweather loss helped him out. He's going to see the flaws in his game and I think try to fix some of the problems. Even though he's a very, very good fighter as it is, he saw some of the flaws. Some of the flaws were shown. I don't know if Triple G has the tool set to be able to implement the same game plan to take advantage of some of Canelo's weaknesses. All right. So that's my thoughts on the last 6 fights for each fighter. I think Canelo has had the better quality fights. And then let's go ahead and look at the judges for this fight. So they're fighting for the IBF super middleweight. So these are all 4 belts from Canelo. At super middleweight, the IBF, WBA, WBC, and WBO. All right. So all 4 belts on the line. Triple G still has his 2 belts at 160 that are not on the line, obviously. They're fighting at 168 right now. But Gennady Golovkin has the IBF, and I believe he may have the WBA belt. He has 2 belts at 160. And obviously, the promoters, Eddie Hearn and whatnot. And then you have Canelo Promotions, Triple G Promotions, and Kevin Rooney Jr. was the matchmaker. So, and then the judges for this fight, you have 2 of the 3 judges from the second fight that scored against Triple G. So this is going to be interesting. You have Dave Moretti and Steve Weisfeld, who both scored 115 to 113 for Canelo in the second fight. And then we have a new judge, David Sutherland, as the third judge. At least it's not Adelaide Bird, okay? On the bright side, right? So we'll see. We'll see. I hope the judges do not play as big a role in this decision as they have in the second 2 fights. I hope we have a clear winner and the judges' scorecards reflect that. So let's go ahead and look back at the first fight and see some of the things that both fighters did that they may bring into the third fight, okay? First fight was scored a draw, split decision for over 12 rounds. We had Adelaide Bird with the infamous 118 to 110 scorecard for Canelo. We had Don Treya, who scored it 114. And then we had Dave Moretti, who scored it 115 to 113 for Triple G in the first fight. And then he flipped his scorecard in the second fight and scored it 115 to 113 for Canelo. But in that first fight, I think it was the majority consensus was in the clear from the media and the fans that Golovkin clearly won that fight. Okay. And these are some of the post-fight notes. Ryan O'Hare from FightNights.com had it scored 116 to 112 for Golovkin. ESPN.com had it same score, 116 to 112 Golovkin. Harold Letterman, same score. Bobby Davis from 13thround.com, same score. And then the AP, Associated Press, and BoxingScene.com had it scored a draw. I mean, take what you will from that, but most people thought that Triple G won that fight. And here's the thing. Some of the notes from that fight, not only did Triple G land more punches, total punches, 218 total punches landed to 169 for Canelo. He's landed the same amount of power punches, 110 for him and 114 for Canelo, but he landed way more jabs. And he has a power jab. And he was walking Canelo down. And one of the notes from this fight by round 4, Canelo started showing signs of fatigue. And I remember Canelo looking like he was gassing a little bit at that point. Golovkin started pushing him to the ropes and walking him down. Canelo started out strong, but one of his issues was he would go strong for the first minute, and then he would try to sit back and take breaks, and Golovkin just don't give you that time. He constantly palmed with the jab and applying that physical and mental pressure on you, trying to box you into a corner. He don't let you have that time to sit back and rest. In a similar way that Dimitri Bivol also didn't give Canelo any time to really rest. So that first fight, it was, to me, and to many others, it was clear that he won that fight. And you look at the punch stats, like I said, another website had it 267 to 203 for Golovkin in terms of total punches landed. And if you look at the combinations, the punches that were thrown, Golovkin threw almost double the amount of crosses that Canelo did. He threw 183 jabs to 110 jabs by Canelo, where Canelo threw almost twice the amount of lead hooks. He likes that lead left hook, and they both threw around the same amount of uppercuts, 19 for Canelo and 16 for Triple G. However, what you see in the punch stats here is in the early rounds, you had Canelo landing more shots, about 10 more shots in rounds 1 to 4 in the first fight. But then in rounds 5 to 8, Golovkin, like we say, Canelo started gassing. Golovkin landed 99 punches to 64 punches for Canelo. And then in rounds 9 to 12, Golovkin landed 123 punches to Canelo's 84 punches. So Canelo tried to pick it up, but Golovkin, he matched him, and he applied pressure that Canelo, I don't really think, was ready for in that first fight. So I thought he won that first fight. And even though he did not go to the body as much as he probably should have, and he had Abel asking him to vary up the attack more, he applied that mental pressure and had a jab from hell that he was just landing with extreme consistency. And he just seemed to land a more effective shots. Even when Canelo landed that one, I think it might have been a right hook. Yeah, Triple G threw out a jab, left the jab hanging out, and Canelo came over that jab with a mean-ass right hook from hell. Golovkin took it and turned back like the Terminator. It's moments like that where it just seemed as though his punches are not affecting Triple G the same way as Triple G's punches are affecting Canelo. So most people thought he won the first fight. And the second fight, it looked like Canelo, he came out and really changed his approach. He got into better shape. He looked like his stamina was a lot better. He looked like he was in better shape. He didn't come in all heavy and bulky. He came in with more muscle, okay? And he said, I'm going to go into the center of the ring and I'm going to meet you there. And I'm going to fight you Mexican style. And he came out, he was a man of his word, and he came out and brought the fight to Golovkin. And they spent a lot of time fighting in the middle of the ring, and at times he was able to push Golovkin back. That being said, in that fight, Gennady still outlanded Canelo Alvarez. Let's see the punch stats for the second fight. 263 landed punches for Golovkin versus 218 landed punches for Canelo. However, Canelo was much more effective in terms of not gassing out and being able to fight for longer spurts in each round. So again, Golovkin landing 10 more crosses than Canelo. Obviously, really pumping the jab, 200 jabs to 132 for Canelo. Canelo, again, using that lead left hook, but he used the rear hook a lot too in this fight. 11 times landed to only one time landed for Triple G. And he really went to the body a lot, which I like, especially with the uppercuts. Okay. And that was one of my criticisms, even though I thought the fight was a draw, me personally, I scored it a draw. I thought that Canelo did not do enough to win, but he did a lot of things better that he did not do in the first fight, especially going to the body. And I think he hurt Triple G once or twice to the body. And we all saw that, which is going to play into this third fight. Because if you guys saw the weigh-in, look at Triple G now at 40 and compare him 3 years ago at 36, 37, and look at the physical physique. And that second fight, Triple G looked a little bit pudgy around the midsection. Not saying he looked fat, but he looked a little bit pudgy. And I think it showed in the fight when some of those body shots gave him some pause. But in this fight, he looks ripped at 40. Okay. The 8-pack, 6-pack, 8-pack starting to come out. He looks in shape. He looks jacked at 168. Even though he's never fought at 168, he looks healthy at 168. He looks jacked. He looks shredded. He looks ready. So to me, I think he prepared for that because that last fight, I don't think he liked how that felt. Okay. And if he's smart, he'll go to the body more against Canelo, which he did not do enough in that second fight. Okay. But the scorecards for the second fight, and like I said, two of the judges in this fight were judges for the second fight, Dave Moretti and Steve Weisfeld. They scored the fight 115 to 113 for Canelo, and then Glenn Feldman scored it 114 as a draw. Okay. And, there's a lot of controversy over that. And they had a lot of bad blood after that because Canelo, I think it's personal for both fighters, but Canelo has really taken this personally for whatever reason. And I think a big part of it is the accusations after the whole positive drug test. Remember back in the first fight, he tested positive for clenbuterol, which is a beta-2 adrenergic receptor agonist, which is going to open up the airways, help you breathe better, help with stamina, especially when you're training and in the ring. Because one of Canelo's biggest issues, like I said in the first fight, is he's been like a 6 to 8 round fighter who kind of takes rest periods in between, within the rounds. And against guys that apply pressure, he has issues. Okay. He had that issue against Floyd. He had the issue against Bivol in that fight. It really showed. And he had that issue against Triple G in the first fight. Okay. He's just got smarter and more savvy about picking his spots on when to fight and then using his defense to really allow himself to evade shots while he gets his second win back. But, that's always been an issue. So I think that's something that he always held a grudge against Triple G for because he kept poking that open wound and saying, hey, you remember what you did that first fight? You got popped and you got caught allegedly cheating. So we're not going to forget about that. And Canelo, he's a prideful dude, man. Did he do it? The scientific evidence would say yes. If you actually research the drug, its half-life, how long it takes for it to be metabolized and excreted from the body, the timelines did not match up in terms of it being the consequence of eating tainted meat. You would have had to eat the whole cow to have the amount of clenbuterol in his system that he tested positive for. So that's something that I think started the bad blood. And then from that point on, I just think the fact that Golovkin, he doesn't really say much in person, and English is not his first language. But if you ask him a question, he's going to be brutally honest. And, Canelo just took exception to it, man, and that's what it is. They don't like each other. So it's going to make for a great fight in that sense. But like I said, the first two fights, the stamina problems that may or may not still be there for Canelo, as well as Triple G's reluctance to go to the body, and he actually showed some signs of being vulnerable to the body. I think that they're both going to take that into consideration going into this fight. I think Golovkin, he's worked on his midsection to make sure he can take those shots because they're coming. He knows they're coming. Like Canelo is a great body puncher, sets up body punches, body combinations with shots up top. and he'll rip those hooks to the body. So he knows that's coming. But I think that Golovkin, he either has to be ready to go to the body or be prepared to suffer the consequences if he just headhunts all night long like he did in the second fight. Okay, especially with the new trainer he has. All right, because he doesn't have Abel Sanchez anymore, and he's been fighting a completely different style of boxing since then. And I don't think that's necessarily his strength. And Abel will tell you that. He said that in countless interviews. And it's not that Triple G can't box. He can box. He has a very good jab. He's a Olympic silver medalist. He obviously has seen different styles. He has a good jab. He has good combinations. But his strength is really being a bully, walking you down and just trying to impose his will on you and hurt you. Okay, not trying to be flashy with the jabs and be like a boxer on the back foot. Like that's not his strongest point. He is solid at that, but that's not what makes him special. Okay, so he's either going to get back to that or it's going to be an issue in this fight. Okay, so that's a look back at the first two fights. So now let's look into the keys to victory here. All right, because I think it's pretty straightforward. These guys have had 24 rounds of boxing with each other, so they know each other fairly well. I mean, almost when you get to the third fight, you know what's coming from the other person. You know exactly what they're bringing. There's no surprises here, okay? So in this third fight, we're going to look at different categories. So let's look at speed. Right now, hand speed goes to Canelo Alvarez. He's a younger fighter. He's always had more hand speed, but I think the disparity in that speed is going to be a lot wider now with Golovkin being 40 versus when Golovkin was 35, 36, 37. Whereas the speed disparity back then wasn't big enough to account for the fact that Golovkin was the more sturdy guy in terms of punching power and he's just built sturdy, okay? And so speed goes to Canelo. Stamina, I'm going to still give that one to Triple G, even at 40. He's still in phenomenal shape. So, and Canelo, though he's gotten better in terms of his stamina, that's never going to be his strong point. So I'd say at 40 years old, they're probably more even now than they were before. Before, Canelo could not really keep pace with Golovkin in the first fight. And in the second fight, he was better, but he was still having spots where he took seconds off, like 10 seconds here, 15 seconds there. And that's where Golovkin would capitalize and retake rounds. So right now, I say stamina is about even. It's probably a push. So speed to Canelo, stamina is a push. Footwork, okay? Footwork, I'll give to Golovkin. He doesn't have, his feet aren't as quick as Canelo's, but Canelo doesn't have quick feet to begin with. He never has. That was one of my knocks on him going into the first and second fight, and why I thought he would have a tough time with Bivol, because his feet, though better, at times it looks like he's walking in cement. Okay. And Golovkin, I think he does a better job of cutting off the ring and really using the angles better than Canelo does. So I'm going to get the footwork advantage to Golovkin. Ring IQ, I give that a tie. I think they're both very masterfully skilled boxers. They're intelligent minds. Canelo, he does things with a purpose. Every punch is thrown with a purpose to set up shots later on. Like he'll throw a shot in the first round that is meant to set up a shot 5 rounds later. He's very, very calculated with what he does, and everything's for a reason. And Triple G, in that same mode of all the Eastern Bloc fighters, setting up shots with the jab, changing angles, pulling that jab, keep occupying the center line, staying in your face. Okay. And that I mentioned this in the Anthony Joshua fight where he was going against Usyk, and you see Usyk, doing a lot of the same things. Canelo, he's going to have to throw the jab more, which I think he can, because if he allows Golovkin to occupy the center line and be able to control the center line, he's going to make this fight a lot more closer than it has to be, in my opinion. All right. So ring IQ, I give a tie to both of them. Ring generalship, again, I give a tie. After the second fight, and especially in his subsequent fights after the Golovkin fight, he's shown that he's able to adapt and have different styles. And Golovkin already a master tactician in terms of setting the pace, controlling the action. I think they've seen each other so much that it's going to be a wash on that in terms of ring generalship. Okay, who controls the fight? Now he's throwing the most punches, or who's on the back foot, who's moving forward. No, are you getting the other guy to do what you want him to do? I think they're both even, especially with the experience with 24 rounds in the bank right now. Power. I'm going to say a slight edge to Gennady Golovkin. Okay, a slight edge. Golovkin's always been a hard puncher, always been a power puncher. Okay, Canelo, very hard puncher. However, you saw when he got up against a full-fledged light heavyweight, and best believe Triple G he's a bigger guy. He's going to come in at like 175 probably. When he went against a full-fledged light heavyweight, those shots wasn't hurting Dmitry Bivol. And Dmitry Bivol is one of the smaller light heavyweights. He's not even Shabransky or Beterbiev, all right? He's a smaller 175. And he probably came in at 180, 185, and he just couldn't do nothing with him. Like, he wasn't feeling the shots, okay? So Canelo, if I give Canelo's power like an A-, I give Triple G an A for power, okay? Slight edge to Triple G for power, all right? And then X Factor. X Factor I'm going to give to Canelo for a couple reasons, okay? One is the caliber of fights he's had in his past 6, which I think are night and day compared to the quality of Triple G's opponents, okay? Triple G came into the Canelo fights with better quality opponents coming up to that point, okay? Whereas Canelo was always having a catch weight or some type of thing where it just wasn't an even matchup. It wasn't an even playing field, all right? Whereas now the opposite is true. Canelo's been having higher level opponents. He went through 168. Yeah, some of them were paper champs, but that's not his fault. He went in and dominated the fights. Even with the Caleb Plant fight, he didn't dominate him the way he did Caleb Smith, but he still had a decisive stoppage to become undisputed super middleweight champion, okay? And then he went up to 175 and had a very spirited competition with Dmitry Bivol. He got outclassed as the fight went on because he just wasn't big enough. But I think that he definitely showed up and showed out. All right. So he's sharpened steel with steel. Okay. Whereas Golovkin, outside of the Murata fight, I mean, he fought 3 years back against Derevyanchenko and had a rough time. Besides that, like, where's the competition been? So, and then secondly, the age. To me, I haven't seen enough of Golovkin at 40, or I haven't even seen him fight at 168 to know how he's going to handle the weight, whether the power is going to be the same, whether his speed is going to be the same. I don't know if he's a natural 168 pounder or whether this is, we don't know. Okay. I don't know what I don't know there. All right. And then third, new trainer. It's now with Abel Sanchez. All right. Canelo's still with the Reynoso brothers. See, nothing's changed there. He's the same dude, La Familia. All right. But Triple G, Abel got the best out of Triple G. Fight in and fight out. Okay. Had him working up top, had him working the body, made him a complete fighter, a Mexican style fighter. Okay. That's why a lot of Mexican fans love Triple G, because he fought with a certain style. But against Canelo, it's almost like they both showed each other too much respect. And Triple G, even more so, showed Canelo too much respect. He had a healthy respect for him, and then it just went a little too far where he just did not do a lot of the same things that he does tactic-wise, okay? So for those 3 reasons, not having Abel Sanchez and fighting as a completely different type of fighter, not having the same caliber of fights in his last 6 fights as Canelo has, and then the fact that he's older, fighting at a different weight class, I have to give the X factor to Canelo, which is why I believe that Canelo will win this fight. I think this will be the first fight that you can clearly see that Canelo won it. Now, does he stop Triple G? I don't know, but I would not be surprised. Triple G's never been stopped. I'm a huge Triple G fan, by the way, all right? For those who don't know, I'm a huge Triple G fan. But given his age, signs of recent decline, which we don't know are set in stone or not yet, and then just the wars he's been in, okay? Don't be surprised if Canelo, after seeing him for 48, 24 rounds, isn't able to land a really good shot or series of shots and stop Triple G. Now, I'm going to pick Canelo Alvarez by decision, but I think that he's going to win a majority decision. That's my opinion. I see him as the better fighter right now. I think he's sitting comfortably in his prime, whereas Triple G is coming off of his prime. All right. So I'm picking Canelo to win this fight. And those are my reasons. Let me know what you guys think about that. What do you think about my reasons? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are things that you think I was off base on? You think there are things that I completely nailed it on? But that's my thoughts for the fight. So I'm more so excited about the fight that's coming up between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. That's something I'm excited about. Okay. This fight, I think, is 3 years too late, my personal opinion. But this fight between Crawford and Spence, this got me hyped. November 19th, Crawford and Spence, that's the fight I'm waiting for. That's the one that I'm not even sure if I'm going to buy this fight tonight. But I'm for damn sure I'm going to get that pay-per-view, Spence and Crawford, because that's two dogs. And we're going to see what's what, okay? For undisputed at 147. All right. So Canelo Alvarez by decision, possibly by knockout, but I'm going to say by decision, okay? Majority decision. I think so. So let me know what you guys think about that, and I'll be back on tomorrow to give a preview about the Raiders and then the Eagles as well. And we're going to talk some football. So as always, enjoy your night. If you're watching the fight, enjoy it. Be safe. Have fun. And I'll holler at y'all next time. Bam. Peace.